Hello and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends on Hack 5. My name is Kody Kinsey. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have my good friend and co-host and fellow hacker Alex on to help answer your hacking questions. So we have lots of stuff to cover this week, and of course if you are in the live chat, then good to see you. Hello, nice to see Zam and Matthew and technical guy. And that dude and everybody else in the live chat. We will be taking a look at your comments and trying to answer all the great questions out there as we see them. So also, if you have left a comment on one of our YouTube videos, we've gone through and compiled them. So we'll be going through and answering questions from the stream that all of you have left. So if you're watching this on repeat, if you don't get to catch us live, then make sure to leave your question on the video because we will be answering them on the stream. So Alex, how's your week been?
Pretty good. We hosted a workshop this Saturday at Nullspace Labs featuring the Wi-Fi Nugget, and we got to teach beginners how to not only assemble this, but use it for running USB attacks. So that was pretty fun. Definitely an eventful week. Pretty tiring. How about you?
Pretty good. So I've expanded a little bit on my QR code research. I've been making more stencils and trying to look into how complicated you can make data in a QR code, and then I've also been looking at flipping QR codes from one to another by kind of like progressing one to another and seeing at which point they kind of tip over when they're really, really similar. So that's been pretty fun. And then as you mentioned, we did our workshop. So if any of you guys are in Los Angeles, if you happen to come to that workshop, then I want to give a big shout out to Nullspace Labs, who we helped raise some money for, and also everybody who came to the workshop and supported us. It was super fun. We got to work with the new Wi-Fi Nugget, so it was kind of our unofficial release party of the rubber nugget. And if you switch over to my screen, you can see a bunch of happy people plotting to break computers. So this is after we broke into teams. A couple people had to go early, but this was a kind of breakout session where we got to target a poor, vulnerable Raspberry Pi, and everybody broke up into teams, got to create their own payloads, and they ended up making some pretty cool and devious ones in order to score the most points and win a prize. And the winners ended up winning a D1 Nugget, which is our previous version of the Wi-Fi Nugget, and one lucky winner actually won a $200 Hack 5 gift card. So big shout out to Hack 5 for sponsoring this workshop. It was super great to get a bunch of beginners started with Ducky script for the first time, and they did a lot of stuff. Like, they started out with a disassembled board, they put it together, they soldered it, they programmed it, and then they were able to write their own Ducky scripts and attack a real computer that they were legally allowed to by the end of the whole workshop. So super fun. If you've never been to Nullspace Labs and you're around Southern California, I highly recommend it. It's an awesome place to meet other cool hackers, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was an awesome venue, and also it was great for me because it was my first experience hosting a workshop, giving a talk, and also getting to explain this to complete beginners. So that was really satisfying. The CTF was also really cool to be able to see people go from no experience to breaking a Raspberry Pi with their rubber nugget.
Yeah, so Alex got to present in front of a bunch of people, which is really good practice for what, Alex?
For my Hope talk, which I submitted.
Yeah.
Which Kody hasn't submitted,
even
though the deadline was a month ago.
Yes, okay, I have some work to do.
Yes,
you
do.
Alex did remember to submit his Hope talk, and he was accepted, so really exciting. This is his first conference talk ever, and he's going to be, what are you going to be talking about?
I think the origin story of the Nugget. I do have to touch up my presentation a little bit because it's a bit scattered, but it's more or less focused around how we designed the Nugget and also things I learned in that process. Yeah. Just having to scale up manufacturing electronics and also the amount of development work that goes into making a platform that's focused around such a niche area of cybersecurity. Yeah,
and actually if we go back over to my screen one more time, we have the winning payload from a team called The Force. So this payload, and it's a little, let me expand it. This payload runs and it immediately steals data from this computer via a canary token, which we taught everyone how to use. So it steals some information. It opens a second window, steals more information. So that's 2 data exfiltration successful attempts. Then it opens a third window, creates a file, deletes a file, leaves a ransom note, which is, these are all ways of getting points in our little CTF workshop. All your Bitcoins to this address. And then there was a little bit of a stumble. They were basically one close quote away from also getting a Rickroll in with all this stuff. So this was, again, a group of people that had never written a Ducky script before. They all got to get together, make a Ducky script, and then they did it. They did an incredible job. So Big shout out to team The Force, who won our challenge, and one of their team won a $200 HackLife gift card. So super, super fun. Thank you to everyone who attended and supported us, and also supported a great hackerspace, Null Space Labs. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we've been up to. Also, someone in the chat said, Kody never blinks. Vampire? Question mark. And I'll point out that I might be pale, but vampires do blink. I haven't seen anything about vampires not blinking. It's androids that don't blink. Not admitting anything, I'm just correcting what I see as a stereotype that's untrue. Next question.
Okay, someone asks, what's the QR code to a reverse shell? Do you want to explain maybe more in depth what you're doing with the QR code project and what you hope to see out of it?
Yeah, what's a QR code to a reverse shell? Well, so people are curious, and when they see a QR code, because it's not human readable, they'll often scan it. And if you were going to weaponize this, there's a couple different things you can do. So my favorite one is weaponizing malicious access points. So making it so that when you scan a QR code, your phone attempts to connect to a Wi-Fi network. Now you can put that in an area where, you know, this might be appropriate, where it looks like it's actually for the real Wi-Fi network there. But because it could be, you know, a couple characters off, you could make it so it actually connects the user's phone to a malicious access point instead, and then redirects them to phishing pages and does other sorts of bad things. So that's a way that you could use a QR code to do something bad. And in fact, we did something where we phished users using a QR code to make them connect to a malicious network thinking it was a real one. Of course, you could also do the same thing with like phishing attacks to malicious domains, but you can't really like get someone's device to like glitch out and like, you know, do something bad unless the code reader is vulnerable. So there are instances of those like handheld scanners that use very simple databases being vulnerable to things like SQL injection. So that means if you were able to, you know, scan an escaped string that encodes to something that the device is going to try to read, you can actually get the device to like dump its database or like do other things or corrupt its database with the QR code. So there are ways that QR codes can be used as an attack vector. As far as I know, just dropping malware immediately on someone's phone, well, I mean, you could redirect them to a URL that drops a file. So there are ways that you could do that, but you kind of have to abuse the fact that people can't read these QR codes, which is honestly my favorite part of them, because you can make very, very similar looking QR codes that where if you scan it, it kind of looks the same, but then it's just one character off, or, you know, looks similar but isn't the same web domain, and I think that's a lot of fun. And one person keeps asking, what is social engineering? So social engineering is, well, actually, it reminds me of that last video we showed last week of Rachel Toback hacking a billionaire, where she just made a phone call where she created a bunch of noise and used a voice changer to be like, email, check email, and then sent an email from a fake account from the billionaire's friend. And that little bit of social engineering created the context where a normally careful guy went ahead and clicked on, you know, a malicious email. So there were two parts of this attack. There was the social engineering side and then the technical side. And the technical side never would have been possible if it wasn't for the social engineering kind of a context that was created here to force this guy to consider what otherwise would have been a pretty sketchy message. So, yeah.
Yeah, more than often it's like about hacking the users than it is like actually hacking into their device. Like if you can manipulate a person into doing something dumb, then more often than not you can force information out of them. I think one of the funniest things was that Twitter hack that was going around like a year ago where like verified people were like sending out random tweets and stuff like that. Like during the pandemic, a bunch of people were like working remotely. So someone like called into the Twitter help desk posing as like a Twitter employee and then asked for like access to like some sort of account and got access to like the verified panel where they could like push out tweets as like verified people. I thought that was really funny and a good demonstration of social engineering.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I just realized this guy, Nullbyte is this guy. Hi, yeah, so I am not Nullbyte, although I did for a while go by Null or Mr. Byte, which I thought was very funny because people would ask me questions as Null, which is great. So the Nullbyte website was originally a part of the Wonder How To family of websites, and it never even got its own breakout domain. It was like nullbyte.wonderhowto.com. So when I was working there as an editor, I was like, we should make videos and put them on YouTube. And they were just like, that's a dumb idea. Don't do that. So I ignored them completely and went ahead and created the Nullbyte YouTube channel. So I did create the Nullbyte YouTube channel, but the Nullbyte website had existed for a good time before I got there. So it's a little bit confusing, but so no, my name is not Mr. Byte or Null, but I do respond to that sometimes because I'm just used to it.
It's a good hacker name, Mr. Byte.
Mr. Byte, yeah. Okay, cool. Got another question?
Yeah, I can whip one up while you check the chat. All right, I'm gonna start taking questions from. I believe this is the camera video we did the other week on Hack 5. Do you want to talk about that? For
yeah. So let's talk about some of the stuff we've done this week. So the last video that we put out was our camera video. So over on my screen, we can see, can Wireshark spot hidden cameras for free? This hit 106,000 views today, right?
No way.
Yeah, so everyone was really excited about this. We put a ton of work into this, and we really tried to make this as engaging of a video as possible. And that's why we didn't come out with a video last week, because we were making another one of these kind of more difficult episodes that takes a lot of work. And actually, we have another one coming out pretty soon, which is really cool.
That one is really cool. I'm excited for that to come out.
Yeah, so if you want to check this video out, a lot of people have already left some questions, so let's go ahead and get to one of them. But I mean, the theme of this video is that you can spot a camera that's using Wi-Fi to transmit using Wireshark just by looking for suspicious MAC addresses or for suspicious devices connected to a nearby access point. That's pretty much it, and then track them down by signal strength. So what's the question?
Yeah, someone asks, can you Deauth the camera? If it's a Wi-Fi connected camera, then yes. Also, if it's if it's a Wi-Fi camera, you can Deauth them. Do you have any more input on that? Yeah,
so there is something called protected management frames, and that would disable your ability to deauthenticate a camera like this. But I would say that most of the time these will be 2.4 gigahertz devices that do not support, that sort of protection. So as a result, yes, many of these cameras are very vulnerable, and you would be able to indefinitely kick it off of its network in order to prevent it from transmitting. Now, if it has an SD card, obviously that wouldn't prevent it from saving to the SD card and syncing the SD card later, which a lot of cameras do have that feature. So temporarily blocking a camera from transmitting doesn't necessarily mean it's not recording, and then it's not just going to upload that footage later. So that is an important distinction, because depending on the setup, you could either create a hole in the footage, or you could have it just wait a while to upload the footage that it's storing to an internal memory device. So yes, it is possible to do it. And this is something that when I consult with people who are paranoid, they're like, I want cameras everywhere, wireless cameras everywhere. I'm just like, okay, well, that creates a huge footprint, because now you have all these wireless devices that can be easily knocked offline. And, unless that's what you want, you should never have, in my opinion anyway, you should never have a Wi-Fi camera pointing at something that you don't want it to maybe turn off for a while if somebody decides they want to. So if you have, a precious gem, I would not stick a Wi-Fi connected camera pointed towards it, because it's very easy for someone to disable that camera. And then, once they disable it, they can go in and pop the SD card out, take the whole camera itself. So yeah, a Wi-Fi connected camera is definitely a weakness if you're looking for a sure shot camera that's always going to be recording. Wi-Fi is both unreliable and also vulnerable to this sort of attack. So one question, what is the OMG cable? Man, you should come to the last stream.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
that would have been perfect.
Where we had MG himself come and talk about the OMG cable.
The OMG table? I don't know.
Sorry, I'm not supposed to be talking about the table. That's coming out next year.
Shoot.
So, Alex, you wanna explain?
Yeah. So, imagine you have a regular charging cable, right? You plug it into your phone. You plug it into the wall outlet. Nothing conspicuous here. But if that cable had an implant in it that allowed it to type keystrokes or some other crazy stuff like that, you probably wouldn't notice. But the OMG cable has this implant in it that allows it to exfiltrate data like from phones or other stuff like that, while disguised as an inconspicuous charger or cable, basically. That's it.
Yeah, and a user says it's a cable that makes you spam the same thing over and over in chat. Yeah, you did post that question a lot, but I can tell it was very important to you. So let's go ahead and take some questions from people who aren't posting the same thing over and over. All right, so one of them is, do penetration companies care if applicants have degrees, or would they rather see certs and labs? So that's a really good question. If I was doing hiring, I would probably want to see like certs and labs, or at least like some sort of like work history or some indication that that person had hands-on experience. If you can demonstrate that you have all the skills I'm looking for and that you've been using them in a professional context and being paid for them, I care about that a lot more than your degree. A degree is great. It means maybe you have a certain level of whatever, but like I'm also not going to call your school and like make sure that degree's real. It's easier to check a job reference in some cases than it is to go back and make sure someone got a great education and they were paying attention the whole time. So as a hiring person, I want to see, have you been hired before? Have you been sticking to this? Do you stay up with this stuff? Is there any demonstrations of stuff you've done independently? Lab completions, or like making your own tools, or maybe making your own resources for other people that are like you. Those are all things that will let me know as a hiring person that, this is really important to you. It's something you do all the time, and that, the fact that you don't have a degree doesn't matter so much because you've gone through these certifications and maybe you've been paid to do this already. that to me kind of means more.
Yeah, more or less certifications just demonstrate you have a baseline level of competence to your employers. I think experience speaks to more than that.
Yeah, someone says, I knew a girl who had a Wi-Fi camera in every single room of her house. I said she was nuts. Well, I mean, it depends on what your threat model is. If you don't care that all these cameras are potentially hijackable or connect-toable, then, it's fine. But if I was to describe a scenario where someone's cameras were extremely vulnerable, I would describe one of two. I would either say a bunch of IP cameras with no security or protection all connected to a vulnerable router, or a bunch of Wi-Fi cameras that are all potentially vulnerable connected back to maybe a potentially good router that isn't vulnerable. All those cameras are a really big attack surface and make it potentially easy for an attacker to get in there and get remote control of one of them and then see into all the rooms of your house, which I assume was not the point of installing all of those. If the point was you wanted to stream the inside of your house to strangers, then this is a great setup, and I can't recommend it enough.
Someone asks, what is a man-in-the-middle attack?
You want to explain?
Sure. Man-in-the-middle attack is basically where an attacker sits between you and whatever thing you're connected to, whatever thing you're sending data over to. So for example, if you're connected to a Wi-Fi network, or you at least think you're connected to a Wi-Fi network that's like maybe your home router or something like that, if an attacker were to kick you off that network, spin up a new one that has the same name, and then your device were to like inadvertently connect to the attacker's one, they could then basically just siphon off whatever data you think you're sending to Facebook or you're texting your grandma or whatever, and they could intercept that data before actually legitimately passing those requests on to whatever server they're meant to go to. So basically a man-in-the-middle allows them to intercept the data before it actually reaches whatever endpoint it was intended for.
Someone says, Alex didn't talk about the coolest part of the OMG cable, passive snooping. That's right, so it can act as like a keylogger, and the way it does that is really cool. And it even has a way of like severing its little data connection so that if you needed to self-destruct the cable, as it were, you could make the cable just suddenly go bad. And forensically, there wouldn't really be a lot of things you could do aside from ripping it apart to try to find out, why it had gone bad. And most of the time, if someone, has a cable that goes bad, they immediately throw it away. So it's a pretty good way of being able to make sure your implant gets tossed and not discovered while it's doing its job snooping and intercepting keystrokes, which is pretty cool. So one person says, hey guys, I'm really interested in getting a Flipper Zero. What are your thoughts on it? Well, Flipper Zero is very brave, in our opinion. We are hardware creators ourselves, and we have a design that we are kind of accidentally created that insulates us from the current chip shortage and all the problems people are having. So because we use modules, kind of like this one here, that have all the hardware necessary to run the microcontroller that we're using, we don't really need to go and find a bunch of individual components. We need to pick up like buttons and neopixels and screens, and that's about it aside from the microcontroller here. So we have had a pretty easy time of the chip shortage. Flipper Zero has not. They have had lots of problems where they've been forced to redesign things, change things, push out their schedule because parts are going out of stock left and right. And that makes it incredibly challenging to create something with such lofty goals as Flipper, because really it's trying to do so many different things and it needs so much hardware to do that, that losing a single piece of hardware can be devastating because it just knocks the rest of the design out of sync and suddenly things just don't work anymore. So our opinion of them is that they have done an incredible job under intense pressure to deliver a product that seems really cool. We don't have one, and we don't have one on order. So
it'd be cool to get one.
It would be cool to get one.
Send it to us.
Yeah, but honestly, they've been struggling so much to get their stuff out that I really don't want to put pressure on them. I've been like, hey, can we get one? So at some point, I'll probably end up ordering one. I would love to show it off on the show because they seem so cool, and it's been such a struggle for them to do this. But yeah, it's really been a lot of stuff for them to have to deal with, and I do not envy them.
No, not at all. It is cool what they're doing, though. They're just packing a ton of chips into a single platform. They have sub-gigahertz radio, Bluetooth, NFC, a whole bunch of stuff. It's a lot. Someone asks, is there a way to ward off a deauthentication attack? I know the WPA3 implements protected management frames, which you were talking about earlier. That basically just prevent unauthorized deauthentication frames from being sent out. And that's basically the only way I know of warding off those types of attacks, just upgrading your router to WPA3. Although that is still vulnerable to stuff like downgrade attacks, which lets you basically pretend like you're a WPA2 device or something like that and have it like downgrade the connection, which then makes the device vulnerable to deauthentication again.
Hmm. Yeah, so there's also something called protected management frames, which is something that's been implemented in WPA2. You can upgrade to using that type of Wi-Fi, and that doesn't require you to use WPA3. Lots of devices also support these protected management frames. So if you were to switch to using protected management frames, that would actually prevent you from needing to upgrade to WPA3, and it would currently protect you against deauthentication attacks from on most devices, because you might find some client devices that don't fully support it. So there's a question in the chat that's, well, this is a question for you. Will there be any new videos with OWASP Zap coming out soon? I sure hope so. Yeah, OWASP Zap is a really awesome tool that has really fascinated me because of how easy it is to do a lot of the things you have to pay good money for on something like Burp Suite. So I really would like to do another one. If you guys like it, let me know, because we actually are featuring OWASP Zap in the next video that's coming out, where I'm referencing that tweet where I got where is it? Here we go, on my screen. So yeah, some idiot texted me a phishing link to steal crypto wallets, and I ended up using OWASP Zap to just send the B-movie script over and over and over and over again. And we're going to be showing exactly how I did that, and some more details about the wallet and everything. So overall, like, this was a pretty funny incident, and we're going to be making another Hack 5 video that features this and exactly how I used OWASP Zap to zap the scammer, as it was. So, or at the very least, fill up their database completely with the B-movie script, because this is tons of data. When we tested this in our video, it created like many megabytes of text file data. So if I were to keep doing this, it would become gigabytes very quickly, and it would all be the B-movie script. So, well,
I mean, in a 1 minute attack, it was megabytes of data. If you did this like over a long period of time, they'd be screwed.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, a couple people asking if we're single. Dial back the thirst a little bit, please. Thank you very much.
Back off.
Yeah. And then any question, where do you start if you want to be a pen tester? Actually, there's a discussion raging right now about somebody who asked, how would I find a 0-day vulnerability in an application? And someone said IDA, somebody said Ghidra. Personally, I don't do a lot of reverse engineering because I'm not a big computer science nerd like some of you, who I respect. So if you are a big computer science nerd and you want to start reverse engineering programs, see where they work and understand and find the flaws in them, then, I would say Ghidra is a tool that lots of people really like. It's got good documentation now. It's been out for a while now.
And it's open source.
And it's open source and it's free. And I'm sure the NSA would never do anything bad, like put a backdoor in it or anything. We were able to put a backdoor in Ghidra.
Yeah, the whole Log4j thing.
Yeah, during the Log4j thing, because it was vulnerable to the Log4j exploit. But yeah, I would say Ghidra is a good free way of starting to do that. But again, it does require a bit more computer science skill and knowledge than some of the other things that we covered.
Ooh,
go on.
What is the USB rubber ducky? Oh, I'll take that one, I guess.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, so the USB rubber ducky, that was one of the first, the first Hack 5 tool. It's basically a flash drive that can type keystrokes. So it does a thing called keystroke injection, where when you plug in what looks like a regular flash drive, it identifies itself to the computer as a USB keyboard. And since computers will inherently trust keyboards, since basically they're just human interface devices, nothing could be suspicious about that. It doesn't require any authentication. It just lets the keyboard mount and lets it type keystrokes. But with the rubber ducky, you can plug in an SD card with a script that tells it what commands to type into the computer it's plugged into. So you can basically pre-program scripts that contain anything from like malware to whatever you want it to type in to the computer it's plugged into, and it'll just inject keystrokes at like lightning speed. It's real cool.
Jason Yabara asked, what kind of beer do super users like? The answer, root beer. That was such a good dad joke. I had to repeat that on the stream. Thank you very much for that. That is wonderful. Also, I think this was just the beginning of that joke. Another question, what are... All right, Jason,
The answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. All right, so one question says, I'm currently monitoring 2 CAN buses on my Tesla Model 3. When do you think that Tesla would have a jailbreak to enhance performance and open to all? I can't wait until that happens, but as like a person that wants to break the computer,
Yeah.
Jailbroken Teslas would be so vulnerable to the kind of things that could just smack your brains into a concrete wall at a very high speed. So would it be cool to be able to tune the Tesla and like unlock things that are like currently locked down? Yeah, totally. But also the problem with like unlocked phones or, you know, jailbroken phones is that they're so much more vulnerable to malware. Oh, yeah. And, you know, so does it sound cool? Yes. Is it terrifying to think of a car that's been unlocked and can run malicious code? And maybe if you decline an ad, just slams you into a barrier on the freeway? Like,
aren't all Teslas like also connected to like the central like Tesla network or like something crazy
something like that? Yeah. So so I would proceed with caution in any device that you are driving in at 80 miles per hour when it comes to jailbreaking it or otherwise removing security restrictions designed to prevent people from tampering with the vehicle. If you remove it, obviously you can tamper with the vehicle, but it makes it easier for anybody else to as well. And if anybody doesn't like you or you owe them money, might not be the best way to find out if they can actually, you know, disable the brakes on your Tesla.
There was a cool Raspberry Pi project where you can, I forget what it's called, but you can basically replace the ECU in your car and like completely tune it like from a Raspberry Pi. I think that project's real cool. I don't know if anyone's done that to a Tesla yet though, but I presume the electronic system's a lot different.
I want to have
do that,
like a 0 day that just shuts down like Raspberry Pis in that case and see what happens to the car if it's driving and you just zap the Pi or just reboot it. Someone leaves their SSH open. So one question, if I'm a beginner, should the first thing I learn be the Linux kernel? What? No. I mean, okay, let me walk that back. If you want to be like a Linux security researcher, like focused on reverse engineering, then like, yes. But otherwise, like, no, learn like bash scripting or like networking or like Python. Like those would be good ways to get started because there's lots of resources and there's good career paths that kind of start from that point on. But no, I wouldn't say that the Linux kernel is the best thing to start with. That being said, there's people I know who are Linux security people who start out learning the Linux kernel, but they love Linux, and I hope that you do too if you want to do that. And if you do love Linux, that's fine. I just don't love Linux quite as much, so I would not start with that. No, I would start with bash scripting or something else that allows you to do a lot with a Linux computer, you know, in virtually any environment you would find.
It says, awesome, I would definitely like to watch more OWASP Zap stuff. Yeah, then hopefully we'll have more tutorials coming out soon.
Awesome.
You've been doing a lot of research with that. It's real cool.
Yeah, so, oh wow, thank you to Walter, just so you know, and we should announce this, I don't know where that money goes. I'm pretty sure it goes directly to the people who own Hack5, but not Darren, or actually like an advertising group or something. So you can just send us emojis. You don't got to send us money, but we do appreciate it. It's the thought that counts. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, thanks for the answers and attitude. Yeah, well, we are working hard to answer your questions, and make sure you leave them because we really do enjoy connecting with our community and getting to know you guys more. So,
someone says, what is Alex major hacking? Lol. I don't know what that means, but
what is your major? Hacking?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't go to college.
Yeah.
I'm too dumb.
Okay. Yeah, so instead of going to college, Alex has created his own hardware platform and learned to program it because he's so dumb. So yeah, if you're feeling bad about yourself, just know that this idiot over here is over creating a business at age 18. Well, I guess 19 now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and also yeah, creating hardware and software, which most people pick one, but he has selected both because he's playing on hard.
Because I'm built different.
Yeah. There you go. That's more descriptive. What is your OS of choice? So I just spoke with someone this week who shamed me about my OS choice, and I'm going to repeat it again, Ubuntu. You know why? Because I do presentations. So for me, an operating system that's easy to debug, has lots of like nice drivers and stuff built in that just connects and works the first time, is way easier to work with when I'm doing debugging and testing. For security work, I will switch between Manjaro and Kali Linux, but when I'm doing presentations or I'm doing media stuff, which I'm often doing since I do a lot of presentations, I like to use Ubuntu. And somebody made me feel bad about that. They made me feel like I should switch to Fedora, and I was just like, I don't care.
That kind of sucks. Like Linux users can sometimes be elitist.
Yes, I just think it's the funniest thing in the world of all the things to judge them about, like their choice of operating system, which is like so incredibly specific to their use case and what they're using it for. Like, I'm sorry, but anybody who like lectures you about like you're picking an operating system that makes you less of a hacker, that was my first experience at Nullbyte. The previous like editor at Nullbyte wrote a bunch of stuff about how I used a Mac OS computer, so I couldn't possibly be serious about my job.
That's
so. Yeah, people who are snobby about operating systems are funny. But I will say there's lots of great OSs out there, and for any specific use case you're looking for, there's probably the perfect OS that fits that use case very specifically. So, yeah, I'm again going to say proudly Ubuntu for presentation stuff. And for right now, I'm using macOS on the computer. I do a lot of media editing, but that's not my one of choice.
Nice. I use Ubuntu mostly, and then when I'm doing security stuff, mostly Kali. I screwed around with Parrot for a while, but I didn't like the interface as much. I think Kali and Ubuntu share the GNOME interface. I don't know if that's right or not, but I prefer that one. Although you could probably easily change out the interface on Parrot, but I was lazy.
Oh, someone also says, networking is huge, but I do love Linux. That's why I'm here. Yeah, seriously. Like, I would say, like, when it comes to, like, learning about security and hacking, learning about networking is probably bigger than learning about the Linux kernel. But learning how to use Linux is definitely something you want to do, because so many tools are written in Linux, and it's a great place to get started. How to create an email server for free. I think you can do it on, like, Zoho. I don't know. I've only done it like once years ago, but it's not exactly my area of focus. But yeah, I think Zoho lets you do it for free on a custom domain. Have fun. And then also, we have someone from Kenya in East Africa. I know where Kenya is. But yeah, very cool. Hackers from Kenya have a very good reputation, and there's a big hacker community in Kenya that I see pretty often actually popping up on my feed. So hello, back to Kenya.
Hey, maybe we'll visit Kenya someday.
Yeah, so people also keep mentioning Dragon OS for SDR stuff, and I always think that that's something I shouldn't repeat because it's like a joke, but that actually is an OS. So I'm not going to ask, you know what it is, but I will say, yes, that is an OS that has come up before, and I've yelled at people, but like, don't you bring that trash on my stream, because I think they're joking. But no, that really is there really is a Dragon OS for SDR stuff. Yeah, nobody likes OS shaming. But I can see we've got several Arch users who can barely contain themselves in the stream, letting us know they use Arch. I too use Arch, by the way, because Manjaro is technically Arch Linux. When I say that, though, Arch users do not like it, which is why I say it. All right, so one question is, I'm shopping around for a VPN. What pros and cons should I be looking out for to ensure my money is well spent? Well, again, who are you hiding from? Are you hiding from your internet service provider because you're, I don't know, downloading some films maybe, perhaps, theoretically? Well, there are several VPN companies that now will not let you use torrents because they've become the new target of movie companies and other companies that are going after intellectual property violators. So you might want to check and make sure your torrent actually allows all types of traffic, because there are several different torrents now that do not do this anymore. I would also make sure that consolidation hasn't consumed the torrent provider you were considering. There's lots of different torrents out there that have been kind of swallowed up by these large companies that are buying lots of different VPN services. That's what I meant, not torrenting. But these VPN services have been centralized a lot, and they can make it to the point that, one company can own tons of different VPN services and be slurping up the data and doing who knows with it. So I would say just do your research and take a look at the different things that these companies may or may not be doing. If they've been subject to certain restrictions legally for what kind of traffic they can allow, that might be something you want to be aware of. And if they're part of a consortium of different VPN companies that have all been bought up by one company, then you should probably maybe take a look at that company too, especially if they've been involved in like clandestine intelligence gathering, which the company behind NordVPN and PIA have been accused of doing. So that's something that I would definitely take a look at before I make a decision. Personally, I like using Mulvad. I think it's a cool service, but is it the CIA? I have no idea. So I'm not really vouching for them. I'm just saying which one I use. Temple OS is hardware level. It is so perfect for hacking. Yeah, that's probably one of our most recommended operating systems. Temple OS is infallible. Sure. If you need like a good flight simulator, or if you want to write something in Holy See, I don't know a single other operating system that can match Temple OS. So if you haven't checked it out, we actually have a video on the Security Forward channel of hacking with Temple OS. So you can check it out and see really what it looked like.
Yeah, if you need to get in your Sunday devotion at the same time you're hacking someone's computer, you have it all there. One operating system.
Question after my own heart. What can the Wi-Fi Nugget do? You got a Wi-Fi Nugget?
What can't it do, really?
Just stop that. All right, so this is the S2 Wi-Fi Nugget. It is the second Nugget design we've done. The first one uses a D1 Mini, And this one is capable of using its native USB capability to act like a USB rubber ducky, but it also has a Wi-Fi interface and it has a button and screens. So when you plug this in, it'll pop up a menu and allow you to select a payload very easily, so you don't even need to know the operating system of the computer that you're attacking before you get there. You can just put a bunch of different payloads on this and select the right one in the moment. And of course, if you want to go through the web interface, you can plug it in, access the web interface from a phone or other device, and either write your own script on the fly or pick from any saved scripts and run them remotely. So lots of cool stuff it can do. That's just one of the programs that can run on this hardware too. So it's just, there's really like a lot that this hardware platform is capable of doing, and we're working on pushing this even further. I just noticed how badly broken this Nugget screen is.
Did you see how badly broken the pin headers are on this too? They're just like,
it felt weird.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. But yeah, so we've been working really hard at making the Wi-Fi Nugget a versatile and fun tool to work with. So whether you're developing it in CircuitPython and you want to add some sensors and turn it into like an IR blaster or something, or if you want to use the Rubber Nugget program to learn human interface device attacks, or even take your own favorite Ducky script payload and make it a little bit easier to deploy, then that is what the Rubber Nugget is for, which again is one specific implementation of the Wi-Fi Nugget. So yeah, It can do a lot is the answer. And someone also says OpenVPN for free. Yeah, you can definitely do OpenVPN if you want to set it up on like your own Amazon instance or like back to your home network, or it all kind of depends on what exactly you are looking for. Yeah, someone else said I love PAA till it got bought. Yeah, me too. They were really nice too. All right, what's the next question? What do we got? Got any stored ones?
Yeah, but someone asks use of cloud computing and hacking. The first video I did on Hack 5 was leveraging Google Colab for hash cracking. So I think probably one of the best features of having access to like a cloud service is being able to access like hardware that you would otherwise have to buy yourself for like a fraction at the cost. So like GPUs that you can use for cracking hashes, like Wi-Fi passwords you're trying to recover, anything like that. But yeah, in that specific demonstration, I showed how to use Google Colab, which is like an AI service that Google offers, which lets you get access to a Jupyter Notebook instance. But I showed how you could use that in order to import some libraries to crack hashes using Hashcat. But yeah, cloud computing is good for cracking hashes as well as other stuff.
Tai Quangong says, "Hi, Kody and Michael." I'm sorry, is he talking about cryptozoology? This is Alex. This isn't Michael.
Got the wrong guy.
Got the wrong guy. But that's okay. Hi, it's good to see you as well. And then someone points out you can actually connect to the internet with Temple OS. Little known fact. Whoa. We did not try that hard. And then somebody else asks, how many hackathons and CTFs have y'all been to? That's a good question. How about you?
One this Saturday. Our hackathon and CTF. But that's about it. How about you?
Well, there was also that one we did at like ShellCon.
Oh, that's true. I guess two.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, so I hosted a number of different workshops at Pasadena City College back when I went there as part of a student organization, so like probably like 4 or 5 there. And then I've also attended a couple at like hacker events, so probably another like 2 or 3. So I want to say like 7 or 8. But it's not really something I seek out very much, and I used to just like not know how to really participate in them sometimes. So I'm not a ton, but I've actually worked to organize more of them than I've attended personally, which is kind of weird, I guess.
Oh, I guess we have done a few like workshops together that are in the same vein as like hackathons or like CTFs. So I guess a handful.
We've received an apology for calling you Michael. It's okay. It's okay. They're very similar looking, in that they're both on my left sometimes.
Yes. What is the hardest sticker to obtain and most proud of on the laptops?
I would say for me, it's probably still the Hacker Yet sticker that I got from Norway. I had to go really far, and I threw up on a plane in Sweden in order to get that that sticker.
I haven't gone to such extent to get a sticker before.
Yeah. So that one's definitely my favorite. Where is it? Oh, and this is the other computer is mine too.
Yeah,
so
these broke my laptop.
Yeah, so these are all my stickers on there. I would say another one that was like kind of tricky to get is this Ghidra one. The Ghidra one we actually got from the NSA, and our good friend Nick was very new and had never done an interview before. We're like, all right, Nick, we're gonna have you interview that creepy NSA guy. And he's just like, what? Because they just come out with Ghidra. So Nick did a little interview. The guy was weird. He was nice. If you're listening, I like you. You're nice. Please don't hack me. And then in the end, we got a bunch of Ghidra stickers. So I actually had to talk to some dude from the NSA in order to get that sticker, and it was a little bit weird. So I would say either the one I had to go to Norway and go to the hackerspace for, or the NSA sticker from the NSA guy. Those are probably my favorite, rarest stickers that I've gotten.
Nice. Someone says the Lind Lab sticker. Yeah, I actually haven't slapped one on here.
Oh, you
But I do have
to.
my personal sticker, which we ship out with every Wi-Fi Nugget.
Someone else asked of the stickers on my computer, what is the cipher bill? So I went to the C3 conference, and I got to be part of this really awesome project called Mystery Hack, which was, and you can see on my computer, like somewhere around here, there's a little like cipher bill. This was basically a cipher bill from, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the show now. Somebody in the channel.
Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls, yeah, there you go. And it was a badge that had an infrared blaster that allows you to interact with other badges. It has an infrared blaster and infrared receiver. And you would start out with a color, and then you would be able to change other badges to your color by kind of like shooting them with the infrared blaster. But there was also a secret game in it where if you got your badge changed to every other color, it would suddenly turn rainbow and start glowing, and turn other badges rainbow too, and cause them to like glow and do a little disco party. So like everybody thought that the game was to like change as many badges to your color as possible, but the secret game was actually to have your badge changed to every color, and then it would unlock this cool little game. And people did all sorts of things to hack this badge, including going to the local hardware store and picking up a programmable universal remote control, and then going around and capturing red, green, blue, like all the different colors of badges, and then being able to play them back. Awesome. Which was super, super cool. So that was an awesome and super fun hardware hacking project. And I would say it's probably a pretty rare sticker too that I got. So the Cipher Bill badge was really cool, and the sticker was also really awesome.
Nice. We need to make a Nugget badge, honestly. We were thinking of putting IR on this, but that'd be real cool. Someone asks, what's the main difference between a Raspberry Pi and a Wi-Fi Nugget? So the Raspberry Pi is a microcomputer, so it's very versatile. It does a whole lot of things, whatever you want it to do. It's a computer. You can set it up to control electronics. You can do Wi-Fi hacking or whatever. The Wi-Fi Nugget is a specialized tool. It's a microcontroller that you can use to learn hacking. And the two areas that we're focusing on right now are specifically Wi-Fi hacking and also USB attacks. So right now we're focusing on implementing more features for the Rubber Nugget, which we talked about earlier. But the Wi-Fi Nugget just exists as a platform for beginners to get started with hacking, and also provides a very simple interface for controlling hardware. So it has like a built-in screen, buttons, NeoPixel. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest difference between a microcontroller like the Wi-Fi Nugget and the Raspberry Pi is the Raspberry Pi is a complete computer. It runs an operating system. It's going to run like Linux or whatever else you want it to run. And that makes it very different because this cannot run an operating system. The Raspberry Pi does. So the difference between the two is you program the Wi-Fi Nugget to do exactly what you want it to do. There's no operating system in the way. You have complete and direct control over it. An operating system provides a level of abstraction to run applications on that let you do stuff. So it's just a very different experience with computing. You need to be a little bit of a programmer or understand programming at least a little bit in order to troubleshoot working with a microcontroller. You do not need to know any programming whatsoever in order to work with a Raspberry Pi. I think that's an important distinction to make, just having expectations about what each one can do. Yeah.
Although when it does come preloaded with the software that we're making, like the Rubber Nugget, for example, or the Nugget Invader, which is another one we're working on, it's a lot less convoluted to work with since the interface comes preloaded on it. It has like prompts for you in order to use the tool. So that's also a big difference.
One question is, what is the hardest avenue of learning that you've encountered? For me, I would say reverse engineering and hardware design. Alex?
Shoot. Honestly, reverse engineering as well. It's hard to get into the mindset of like someone who created a tool when you're trying to dissect it. But more than often, that's like how I learn to understand stuff. It's like taking something that already exists, tearing it apart, and then also like modifying it. Yeah.
Oh, somebody points out also the Raspberry Pi Pico works as a bad USB for like $4 but the Nugget rules and has a screen and is, of course, adorable and more fun. Yeah, so I actually got to work with the person who made the Pico Ducky. That is a CircuitPython implementation of a human interface device attack using Ducky script. Super, super cool. There are a couple disadvantages, of course. One, the Raspberry Pi Pico does not have buttons, so you cannot select, like anything other than one payload and then have it run. It also doesn't have Wi-Fi, so it's not able to provide a Wi-Fi interface in order to add, run, or remotely trigger payloads like the WiFi Nugget does. So that's another advantage the WiFi Nugget has over it. And then of course it doesn't have a screen, so you have no idea what's going on the Pico, because unlike the rubber Nugget, you can't see everything that's going on. And one of the features Alex just added is the ability to see what part of the payload is executing on the screen. So as a hacker, you can get feedback about what's happening while you're developing your payload. So yeah, it is more expensive, but of course, if you don't want to, you can always make your own Wi-Fi Nugget. We just ask that you don't mass produce them and sell them on hacker boxes or some theoretical service. Who did exactly that? They took our design, they made it, and then they sold it. So, of course, like we've made a version you can make for yourself for free because we love the community and we wanted to put this out there. But it was a little disappointing to see that they just took our design, didn't even talk to us, like didn't even ask if we would care, and then released it. And then a bunch of people started asking us for support, and they used an old version of our board. So we'd made improvements that fixed a bunch of stuff that they had no idea about. So they just used an old version and then sold it to a bunch of people, and then we had to help with customer service. So please don't do that. But if you do want to make your own Wi-Fi Nugget, we don't care. Like, make one. Like, the design files are online. You're able to do it. And we wanted to make this as easy as possible for people to support us, because we feel a little bit weird having like a Patreon or something like that and not giving back something for those who support us. So if you want to support us, then that's just one way to do it. And we try to give back also by making sure we create lots of content and lots of things to do with these hardware platforms we've been working on. And again, this is Alex's first design. If you want to support him as a hacker, he doesn't get paid much to be on Hack5 or to do the live stream. So this is how you can give back and help support what we do. So we appreciate it. Again, we know that there's cheaper microcontrollers out there, and if you don't care that there's no screen, no buttons, and doesn't have a Wi-Fi interface, then yeah, sure, go for it. Like the Raspberry Pi Pico will do just fine. All right, next question.
Does the new Wi-Fi Pineapple have USB-C? There was also a previous question asking to see the Wi-Fi Pineapple featured in more videos. I was messing around with it a while ago before I got occupied with Nugget stuff, but absolutely I do plan on doing some Wi-Fi Pineapple videos in the future. I also don't know about the Type-C thing. That would probably be a question for Darren.
What's the configuration of your laptop? What OS do you use all the time? All right, stop spamming. Stop spamming. We'll answer you. All right. So currently I'm using a Mac OS system. I got this because I got it for free with work and because it was expensive. And it works just fine to be Linux-like enough that I can do most of the research I need to do on this and I don't need to switch. My backup computer is currently Alex's computer, and that is running a split between Windows, Ubuntu, and Kali. Dual partitioned and just kind of booting between them. I don't really like virtual machines because they cause a lot of lag, especially when I do Wi-Fi stuff. So that's why I have that set up. And Alex's computer is destroyed. So
it's in the garbage.
Yeah, so his configuration doesn't really matter because obviously it wasn't strong enough to withstand the test of time. But Alex, if you did have a computer, what would it be running?
Probably Ubuntu. That's usually my go-to. I've been using Linux for years now. My first computer was actually a Raspberry Pi because I was too poor to afford one. So I had like a Raspberry Pi setup that I carried around with like a clunky monitor. And then subsequently I just have been using Linux since that's what I was used to. And I'm not a gamer, so I don't need like Windows or anything like that.
So here's a question. What is better to build cybersecurity? What is better to build a cybersecurity lab in the cloud, like AWS or something, or better to build on premises? So I actually did this myself. We used the S2 Wi-Fi Nugget to create a vulnerable web application, and then when you successfully break into it, the Nugget gets very excited and lights up. And it's it's fun for an on-premises CTF because you can do lots of debugging, and it's a physical piece of hardware, so if it's working, it's working. If it's not working, it's very easy usually to figure out what's going wrong. AWS is ethereal and someone else's computer somewhere. So it's really difficult to troubleshoot that sometimes when you're trying to figure out why this lab isn't working. Now, Portswigger, who makes Burp Suite, has a series of really excellent labs that allow you to try out a variety of different web application pen testing tools and really learn on a deliberately vulnerable application that seems to be launched via AWS or something like that. This is great. I cannot overstate how awesome it is to be able to do this from everywhere and be able to really get your hands dirty with a real vulnerable application. But when it goes down, you are totally boned. And it has gone down for me, where I've spent like a whole night and a half where I tried to demonstrate their lab and I couldn't do it. And because I needed to do this for work, that was a pretty big deal for me. And if you're setting up a CTF or something and you're using this free online resource, well, what if it goes down? You know, like if you're self-hosting, then that's one thing. But if you're using a third-party resource, then I would say personally, I would kind of prefer to use like a hardware-based version. But if I'm just doing things casually, I think that the AWS instance is totally fine and really cool, and I do appreciate it. I just don't like that sometimes it goes down and I'm left without any sort of training ability at all. So for me, I kind of use a blend. What do you think?
Wi-Fi Nugget all the way.
What? Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Someone says, can we share our own Wi-Fi Nugget projects? Yeah, absolutely.
Please do.
We also have a
that.
public, we have a public GitHub repository that you can make contributions to. I'll drop the link in the chat, but it should be github.com/hackhattech, which is HAKCAT-tech.
All right, so I love tinkering and experimenting with virtual machines. Do VMs create enough of an island for me to not have to worry about malware? So the interesting thing about malware is it tries to escape from VMs super hard, or sometimes malware won't even run in a VM because it thinks you're trying to analyze it. I would say in a big picture, it will provide you with the amount of virtualization that will, an abstraction that should, in theory, protect you. But I have seen VM escapes like in the wild and that we've reported on in the last year or two. So it is not a perfect ability to protect yourself, but it certainly will contain the blast radius to a certain extent. And you do need to then have 0 days and other stuff in order for it to infect the rest of your computer. In general, like an operating system that you use specifically for this with virtual machines for individual projects is probably the best way of going about this and sanitizing as best you can. But you have to assume that it might get back to the operating system that you're working on, especially if you have some settings, maybe like bidirectional sharing that allows a file in one to be seen by the other. These sorts of things could allow a malware infection to spread from the virtual machine to another part of your system. But again, the likelihood of that happening is a lot lower than just running all of this stuff on your personal computer directly without a virtual machine.
Yeah, lots of new malware can actually detect when it's like running within virtualization software and then just like shut itself down or completely corrupt the file if it detects that it's running like in an abstracted layer of software. Honestly, like having a separate computer box that's like loaded up with a fresh installation of like Linux or like something like that is probably good if you're doing like malware reverse engineering.
Yeah, so one question also is there a way to hack a PC without having to execute any type of file on the victim's PC, like completely without getting the victim to download and execute any file? Sorry for my bad English. Your English is fine. So yeah, if you're an NSO group and you have millions and millions of dollars and you're buying from sketchy security researchers all these 0 days, then yeah, you can abuse like, I think like Apple like WebKit was like a very popular target for creating this crazy, at one point they created like a virtualized CPU.
Oh, using GIFs or something.
Using
right?
a GIF, and then they were able to use this virtualized CPU to execute the malware. In order to avoid all these protections. So yeah, if you're gonna build a virtual CPU out of a GIF, then this is possible. But the resources required to do this are well beyond what the average person would have. So if you're a nation state, you're hoarding zero-day vulnerabilities, or you've got some guy in the back that builds, like CPUs out of GIFs, then maybe you're in business. But the average person would not have access to this kind of zero-day exploits. All right. So someone else says, I've always found Cube's OS very interesting. Yeah, Cube's OS is really cool. If you're a super paranoid person, it allows you to virtualize things and separate everything and really prevent malware from being able to get a foothold on your computer. But you do need to make a bunch of compromises. So it depends really on what you're using your computer for, whether or not that is a good idea. Okay, I think we have just about all of our time covered today. I want to thank everybody that asked really excellent questions. And honestly, like, we love getting to interact with all of you. Getting to meet everybody at the workshop was super, super fun. So if you're in the chat and you're from the workshop, then again, thank you so much. We loved getting to try out the new version of the Wi-Fi Nugget, the rubber nugget, and get feedback on it. So stay tuned for a Hack 5 episode about the workshop and more about the release of the Wi-Fi Nugget as an official Hack 5 tool, which we're looking to do hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah, that was awesome. It's basically like the debut of our rubber nugget that we're going to be putting out soon. It's a real cool workshop.
Yeah, and we actually did get a lot of questions from people who weren't able to make it to the Southern California area about whether or not we were going to do another workshop. So if you guys want us to do another workshop, we can do an online one where we'll mail out everything. We'll do it like, you know, like it was back in the heat of the pandemic, and we can do an online workshop as well. All get together and learn how to hack a little bit. Just let us know if you're interested. Then, you know, if we see people commenting on it, then maybe we'll do that too. But yeah, so that's all the time we have today. If you have any ideas for upcoming stuff, or if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Kody Kinsey, or to Alex at Alex Lynn. Yep. And you can also catch us every Friday going through the news on the Security Forward channel. So you can check out Security Forward, that's Security FWD, on YouTube, and you can also go to hackingwithfriends.com and see all the episodes we're doing. So thank you again to everybody that's hanging out with us in the chat. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. And again, if you want to get your question answered and you're watching this on repeat, drop it on the video and we will make sure to answer it next week on Tuesday, and hopefully we will see you there. Thank you very much.